Interesting. And Jerry Vance is also a 2003 Iraq war veteran, and he's spoken repeatedly about how America should not get bogged down in these forever foreign wars. Now, when this war started, the American and the Israeli objective, of course, was to try and denuclearize Iran. That is what Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu started off with. But in the course of this war, what the Iranians have done is that they've wrested control of the Strait of Hormuz. In your assessment, do you think the Strait of Hormuz is now an issue on which the Americans have accepted that the Iranians will now exercise control and even continue charging tolls for any ship that transits through the Strait of Hormuz?
I think it's been a bit of a shock for the US, hasn't it? I mean, in the Iraq War in the 80s, they escorted various Kuwaiti oil tankers through the Straits with no problem. And Trump went into this assuming that the US Navy is the most powerful in the world, which it is, but that it was invulnerable. And they quickly realized that if they sent a single frigate into the Straits, it would be sunk by missiles and drones. And so they found themselves to be powerless. And so in terms of reopening the Straits, they have no cards to play. That Iran is now completely in control of that, and they're not going to actually get a concession there, that Iran will now keep control of it if it possibly can. The only thing that could stop it is the other Gulf neighbors are also very unhappy about that. So we have to see how that plays out. But interestingly, you know, Trump went into this as a nuclear non-proliferation issue. But from the list of demands that the Iranians put on the table ahead of this meeting, suddenly the whole uranium enrichment thing seems to have disappeared. And I think they're offering that as a concession, because in the talks in Geneva just before this war started, that Agebachi, the foreign minister, did a deal where he agreed to dilute the uranium and give up on the nuclear program, or at least water it down. So I think that's actually the light that the Americans are holding out for, that's the concession they're going to get out of this, is to end that nuclear program. Maybe even go back to the Jack Power nuclear deal that was before.
Interesting. And also the Gulf nations, the GCC nations, they are also big stakeholders in this, but they're not present there in these negotiations. They were also not a party to this war. They'd been advising and suggesting to Donald Trump to not start this war. But once the war started, the GCC was effectively turned into a shooting range by the Iranians. In your assessment, do you think the Gulf nations will be re-looking at how they go about their security? Hosting American military bases on their soil has turned them into a target for the Iranians. What do you think is going to be the talk within the GCC capitals about hosting these American military bases?
I think it's done enormous damage to the US's reputation, because it's there in the GCC nations as the guarantor of security. And so it has 13 different bases, and it supplied everyone with billions of dollars of highly sophisticated defense weapons, which haven't worked, that the Iranians have shot through them like a knife through butter. And so everyone now has to reassess, because the security guarantee that the states are supposed to supply has failed. And so, you know, the states' prestige has been battered, but actually the system, the military hardware, is ineffective. So they've invited people like Zelensky from Ukraine, who's been offering them drones, and the new world, the new face of modern war is now drone-based. So he's been looked at. I think everyone is going to reassess their security arrangements and look to themselves or look to multiple partners. Interestingly, both Russia and China have been invited to these talks, and these are the new players in the game, because the Iranians have got tech and satellite intel support from both Russia and China, which has made a material difference to Iran's ability to succeed against America. So everyone's going to be looking at that and reassessing their relationships to those two as well.
Right. My final question to you, Mr. Aris, is about the player which is playing a big part in this war but is not present in the course of these negotiations, and that is Israel. The Iranians have said that if these negotiations are done by the American representatives with the idea of America first, they'll succeed. But if it is Israel first, then these negotiations are not going to succeed. In your assessment, how is Tel Aviv looking at these negotiations that are currently underway in Islamabad?
Very nervously. I mean, the Israelis don't want to be cut out. Netanyahu has made it perfectly clear that he's not finished in Lebanon, that they want to destroy Hezbollah. And the ceasefire was announced. It included explicitly a ceasefire in Lebanon. Netanyahu ignored that and then hit Beirut the next day with the most massive missile barrage that we've seen since the start of the hostilities, killed 300 people and counting. So they're very unhappy with this and actually being taken out of the loop. But I think Trump has his own agenda. He needs to finish this war. He needs to claim some sort of victory. He's facing midterms. The Republicans are going to get decimated in those elections in November. And so Netanyahu has his own agenda, but he's being pressured by the states to toe the line to stop the fighting. So talks are now going to start, hosted by Washington next week, between Israel and the Lebanese government, who is also control.
All right.
Seem
to be having some issue with the connection with Mr. Ben Aris there, but Mr. Ben Aris was, of course, making the point that this is a negotiation that Israel will, of course, be watching very closely. Remember, it is a party to this war, but is not there at the negotiating table, where the Americans are being represented by J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and, of course, the Iranian Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf Abbas Araghchi and others are there in what is being described is a face-to-face conversation for the very first time at such a high level since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. So some key moments unfolding there at this moment in Islamabad, which will in many ways redefine as to what will now happen in this war that was started on the 28th of February. There is at this moment a tenuous ceasefire that exists. Mr. Ben Aris, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us from Berlin and getting us those insights. But this is a negotiation that is still underway. The talks have been ongoing for 3+ hours behind closed doors in what is being described is a face-to-face meeting between the representatives of the United States and Iran.